Are we rolling? I think we're rolling. Today's video, I want to talk about how I document my life aesthetically. And everything that I do before I actually hit record. I'm gonna talk a little bit about my process, what I'm thinking before I get the shot, and hopefully this can help you create better content as you document your life. Today, we don't have coffee because I already drank my coffee earlier in the day and it would not be good to have another coffee. So unfortunately, we're not gonna have that. Next video, I'm gonna have it. Before I get into the nitty gritty of how I actually film my shots and what I'm thinking when I'm filming, let's talk about the camera that I use. The camera that I first started using and I still use here and there is the Sony a7S II. It's a little bigger camera. It's quite an old camera, but it still has a lot of capability. And then I'll use my 16 to 35 with that, and it's been able to produce some really good quality shots. Some of the shots that you see in my videos are taken from that camera, which I'll show right now, right here. But since then, I've moved on and I've opted for a smaller camera that can do some of the same shots that I'm looking for. This is the Sony ZV-E10, which is what I'm currently filming on. You're probably like, how do I have two? This is my fiance's camera, but we have the same exact camera. I love this camera. This is a great camera, but they did just release a second version, and to be honest, that one's better. And it's able to produce some really good shots. And part of the reason why I prefer this camera versus filming with a bigger camera like this is when you're documenting your life, you want it to be as easy as possible. Sometimes you don't have all this time to set up the camera, to pick your lens, and make sure that everything it looks great, right? Sometimes you want to just be able to do run and gun shots. So this camera does a great job at doing that. It can also film in S-Log2, which is what I typically film in. That way I can get this nice color grade and I can have all the power to adjust the colors the way I wanted to. So this is what it looks like without the color grade. This is what it looks like with the color grade. So this camera has a lot of capability, and part of that too is also knowing your camera, knowing its capabilities, knowing its limits, knowing where it might not excel at, and knowing where it can. So if you're gonna film with your phone, which I've used plenty of phone shots in my YouTube videos before, phone shots are great. Sometimes it's not about the camera that you have, it's about the one that you have on you at that time in that moment. And so if you're gonna use a phone camera, so I use the iPhone 12, learn about the camera, watch those tips and tricks videos, understand lighting, understand composition, because if you pick this up but you don't know anything about how to film, you might not be as impressed with what you're able to extract. So when I use this camera versus this camera, typically I'll use this camera if I know I want it to look a very particular way and I know I have that flexibility and timing to be able to set up those shots. But if I know that the place I'm gonna be filming at is gonna be a little bit tough to just set up a camera, or maybe it's just not possible, then obviously I would go with the second best choice, which is your phone camera. There might be moments where pulling out this camera is not necessarily appropriate, but pulling out this camera is totally fine. And so knowing your environment, that's gonna be important. All right, so we're gonna move the camera, I'm gonna move somewhere else, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about the shots that I actually get and what I'm thinking before I capture them. All right, so let's talk about the shots that I get, why I pick the shots, and how you can recreate these shots as well. So we have wide shots, medium shots, and the close-up shots. So I'm somebody who really enjoys a lot of wide shots. I love making myself appear really small in the world that I'm in. I really enjoy these type of shots because it communicates where I am, communicates the significance of that location a little bit more. When I'm taking up more of the frame like this and it's really hard to tell what's behind me, I think it's a little bit tougher to communicate that. So typically I love shots like this because you get to see the entire space, see the entire element, and these can also serve as establishing shots. So in film, you'll learn that establishing shots are shots that let the viewer know where this is taking place, right? So for instance, if I'm making a vlog and I'm filming in my apartment and I'm like, let's go to the coffee shop, and then it just cuts straight to me being inside the coffee shop. Visually, it still might make sense, but what would help tell that story a little bit better is shot number 1 being in my home, shot number 2 being the establishing shot, which would be a shot of either the establishment or the location of the coffee shop. Could be you walking into the coffee shop, could be of the sign, and then transition to the shot of you in the coffee shop. All right, let's move to medium shots. Medium shots are kind of like this. Now, typically, I'm not bent over. Medium shots is typically either the waist up or chest up. So a lot of shots like this you've seen before, is when creators, they come up to the camera and they talk into the camera because it feels more intimate, right? I don't really film a lot of medium shots unless I'm talking, just because I love showing off the environment. And if I'm showing off the environment, but I'm like taking up most of the frame, I think it's not the most interesting composition ever. But if I'm talking to you, then I think it's perfect. It makes sense because this behind me is not the most important thing. What I'm saying is, and so being closer to the camera is a good opportunity. If you're in an environment, you can film the location, film your background, and then if you have a speaking portion in your video, then that's when you can come up and get a little closer. All right, lastly, we have the close-up shot, or what I like to think about it is the detail shot. So you'll see this in a lot of my clips, and I want to put importance on something or highlight something in particular, I'll film really close to it, whether it's something of me writing, whether it's me turning something on, and it brings you into the moment. It brings focus and intention behind the moment of whatever it is that you're doing. And it's that visual language and visual consistency that is really important when you're telling these stories. So the first thing that I want to talk about is world building. You know, when you watch a movie, let's say a superhero movie, and there's a bunch of different scenes, and there's typically a set, there's typically a common area where they are filming, where the character typically goes. It shapes our lens of what we believe is possible within that character's world. So how does this apply to myself? Well, this is a common area of where I would film. This is, in a way, my set. Now, I do actually work here, and sometimes I game as well here, but this is the spot that I typically will film my videos in. Now, when you think about it like this, where does your character go? Where do they want to go? Where do they need to go? Where are they currently at? So when you want to think about what shots should I film, you can think about what are those common areas where you are gonna be. It's a window into the person's life. Again, my channel is about documenting my life, my progress of being a content creator. And so within my world, I am in the Seattle world. Within Seattle, I'm probably at my desk in my apartment. And if not there, probably in my living room. And sometimes I go outside, I go to coffee shops, I go to nature spots. You'll see like the cinematic shots I have. Every shot is building this world, building what is possible. Part of my world building is being in this apartment, and one day and here's my light, and one day it's not gonna be. One day I'm gonna move, because I gotta move sometime this year. Moving is not fun, but this will help me think about the shots that I actually need. World building is also thinking about the color, the mood, the sound, all these elements that add to your video that kind of narrate the feeling that you want you or the person that's watching your video to feel. And you see this in a lot of creators. Sometimes they'll have a very moody color grade, and for me, typically I like my shadows to be dark blue. This is all adding to that aesthetic. So it's not always just what you see. There's a lot of strategy and behind the scenes thinking that puts this all together. Our filming, where the character typically goes. All right, so I gotta go to dinner because it's 7:18 p.m. Today is January 4th, 2025. Last thing that I want to talk about is playing the role. A lot of times you'll see creators and they're standing in front of the camera and they're looking around, and you know, you can obviously tell that they set up the camera and that they are just looking for the shot. I'm somebody that still does this and I need to work on it. And so as I'm telling you, I'm also telling myself, but what's gonna make those shots of you documenting your life so much better is actually doing the thing that you are recording. So for instance, if, you know, I'm at my computer right now, if I'm typing something and I'm trying to capture a shot of that, whether it's here or, you know, setting up and showing the actual, let me actually just show you a lot of people, they're gonna set their camera up, they're gonna look at their laptop and they're gonna just like pretend to scroll. It might be passable. What I like to do now is I'll set up my camera and I'll actually do the thing that I'm trying to portray, that I'm trying to show you. So here's an example of me trying to look like that I'm doing something. And now here is me actually doing the thing that I want to show you. That is an example of actually putting the thing that you're trying to document into practice, and it's gonna make your shots that much more believable when you're documenting your video. So let me move the camera right back here. So why does this matter? I think it's very important to actually do the thing that you're trying to portray, because one, is genuine. Two, it's confidence. It shows that you're confident. It shows that you are actually doing the thing, and it brings the viewer with you along the journey. So maybe you set up your tripod, you set up your camera, you film yourself doing the actual thing, and you might end up with a big or large file, but that's okay. You can trim it down. You can always trim it down. And for example, if you set up a shot of you looking out at the view, like actually look at the view, actually look at the building over there and the lighthouse and how the light twinkles and how the water hits the waves and how that actually mesmerizes you. You might think it's not doing anything, but it's so helpful, and it's not pretending, it's actually showing and actually doing the thing, and that's gonna help a lot too, bring more rawness and realness to your video. And that's how I document my life aesthetically. There's a lot of elements that I think about before I actually hit record. And maybe you already knew that, maybe you didn't, but here's one thing I want to tell you, because I know this might seem overwhelming, and this is what I've learned over the past 10 years that I've been creating content for myself. The number one thing that I want you to remember is that you need to practice. You need to just hit record. You need to think about, you need to learn, you need to improve, because you're not going to know what you don't know until you stumble, until you trip and fall. And realize, oh, this is what I can do. Now, that doesn't mean don't educate yourself, don't learn about new things. It just means that there's only so much that you can learn without actually learning. But you're gonna learn what's gonna work for you, might not work for someone else, and vice versa. So it's really important to just start shooting, and you're gonna see what you like, right? You have no idea how long it took me to get to this point where I kind of know what I want to film, and I built that intuition just knowing some things of how I want to film. At least for myself, this is a series of trial and error until I got to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I know that shot didn't work, but I think this shot could work. And so that comes from just practicing and knowing that your first couple of shots are probably not going to be perfect, but that's okay. That's okay. And you never know too. Keep your footage. If you have a hard drive, keep your footage, label it. The way I like to label it is by year, the month, and then within the month I'll have folders for that particular video, because you never know when you're going to use it, and you can always find a reason to use a clip from 10.5 a couple months ago or whatever. And I do it all the time, and I love it, and I think it adds a lot of depth, and it shows growth as well. If you want to show growth and process in your clips, I think it's important to have that backlog. I have terabytes and terabytes of footage that I can use. And so those are my tips. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful. I'm so thankful if you made it this far. Thank you so much for spending your time watching this video. I really appreciate that. So I gotta head to dinner. Thank you so much too for the support. We just hit 6,000 subscribers. Road to 10K, let's go. If you could, hit the subscribe button, that would be awesome. If you hit like, that would also be awesome. And if you comment, that would also be awesome. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.